Hey there friends, there's a lot of Final Fantasy 16 news, so I'll just dive straight into it. So Final Fantasy 16 producer reveals more details on the combat, summon and party members. Yoshi P confirmed that Final Fantasy 16 will have a form of party-based combat with AI characters, and also he discussed the Aeons. Final Fantasy 16's version of summons will figure into the gameplay, and Yoshi P said, "We didn't want to overwhelm users who are to our newest trailer, so we focused solely on Clive's battles. That said, for most of his journey, Clive will be accompanied by one or more companions. The companions will participate in battles as well as trade banter with Clive. That said, the party members will be AI driven, so as to allow players to focus solely on controlling Clive." So that's going to be a lot like Final Fantasy 15 before that update, where they allowed you to play as a cast of 15, where you could only play as Noctis, but you had people in your party, and in some aspects they will leave the party. So yeah, so that is what I'm getting the sense of. They're all AI driven, so yeah. So Final Fantasy 16 producer confirms it won't be open world. Final Fantasy 16 won't be following the footsteps of its predecessor with Final Fantasy 15, of course, won't be offering a true open world. Instead, it will be divided up into regions, more contained areas, while still taking inspiration from other AAA games, Yoshida said. To bring a story that feels like it spans the entire globe and beyond, we decided to avoid an open world design that limits us to a single open world space, and instead focus on an independent area game design that can give players a better feel to a truly global scale, he explained. So similar to like God of War 2018, where it wasn't like open world but it had areas. Maybe that's what he means. So Final Fantasy 16's puppy has a name, and he may possibly be a party member. So remember the pup from Final Fantasy 16? Yoshida revealed his name whilst teasing that he may be a bigger role to play in gameplay. So Yoshi P said, "Well, let's just say he's more wolf than dog." That already implies that he's going to be much more aggressive. That already implies that he could be like a fighting party member type aspect. And he said his name is Torgal. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if I'm butchering it. And Yoshi P continued, "As for him being a party member, you'll just have to wait and see. We'll have more info on parties soon." So he's doing this rounds of interviewing different sites, cause not only did he interview with IGN, he also did with PlayStation blog. So we're gonna look at that. But yeah, it seems like we will get to know what's happening with the party members soon. So Yoshi P was sat down with PlayStation blog and was asked a few questions. So PlayStation blog asked, "What do you think are the core tenets of Final Fantasy games? Did the development team look at past titles for the series and guidelines to inspire 16? Yoshida said, "I'd say the core elements of Final Fantasy games are a deep story, deep gameplay, cutting-edge graphics, and cutting-edge sound, as well as chocobos and moogles, of course." Good lad, good lad. In the 35-year history of Final Fantasy series, it's always been the guiding policy that each new installment has to be the very best game the director at the time put together. No matter how the game world, the characters, or the battle system changes. Because of this, gamers and Final Fantasy fans around the world have very different ideas of what a Final Fantasy game should be, but to me, it's those elements mentioned. When it comes to deciding what to do with Final Fantasy 16, I thought back when I played the original Final Fantasy and remembered how it felt playing the lead role in motion picture. I'd say capture, my bad. I wanted to recapture that feeling in 16, but with state-of-the-art game design and the latest in modern technology, the whole development team is under the directionship of Hiroshi Takai, has come together to make the dream a reality. So I hope you look forward to it." So basically what he is saying, that he is planning, he is hoping, and I'm sure he will execute, that Final Fantasy 16 will have a deep story, deep gameplay, cutting edge graphics, and amazing sound, which by the trailers we have seen, they kind of on that path as it is. Now, when it comes to when he said gamers and the world around, that's very true. What when he says what is a Final Fantasy, because we always get that question when a new Final Fantasy game comes out. There's always someone asking what is a Final Fantasy game. Like, it's always that question, right? So it's just weird, but he gave a great answer, which I really do like, because I remember Tabata was asked that when 15 was about to release. So yeah, it's a very weird question that they always ask, so I'm happy Yoshi P answered it in that way. Then the PlayStation blog said, thinking back to the beginning of Final Fantasy 16's project, do you remember how the conversations went when you were asked to produce this new mainline entry? What was your initial reaction? And Yoshida said, thanks, but I have my hands full with 14, so let me think about it. I was truly honored that the company would choose my section, Creative Division 3, to be responsible for making the next entry in the FF series. But as you probably know, I'm already the producer and director of 14. I was worried that if I took the direction of 16, too, fans of both games would have a good reason to believe I wasn't giving either project my full attention. To ensure that the development of 16 didn't affect that of 14, we picked out a very small group of core team members to start that, and over the course of several years, slowly and carefully transitioned across to starting work on that game until we had the full team assembled. I'm gonna be cutting out some stuff, like one of the questions was, what is your favorite summon? And Yoshi P basically said it was Bahamut, and he didn't want to say who's his favorite in 16 because that'll cause speculation, so I'll cut off some stuff. PlayStation blog asked, how does it feel to switch up between a standalone and multi-year multi-expansion stuff? That of course alluding to how does it feel transitioning from an MMORPG to a standalone RPG. And Yoshi P said he has worked on other games besides MMORPGs. First, the only major difference he noticed was that if he wanted to foreshadow something, he had to pay it off a lot faster. Then the PlayStation blog said that, what does the logo of Final Fantasy 16 mean? Then, like, you know, every Final Fantasy's logo has a meaning to it, so what does 16's mean? So Yoshi P said, Yoshitaka Amano design for the logo is full of meaning. As you'd expect, I show two icons facing off against each other, and the rest for now is a secret. Now the two icons is Phoenix as well as Ifrit, I believe. So there could be something with that. We'll have to see that and we'll have to analyze it. But yeah, I believe those are going to be the two main focused icons of the game itself. So then there's another aspect. So they said, how are you going to, what is the development team going to do in the short time frame after you revealed that it's going to be releasing next year? And Yoshi P said, right now the game is fully playable from start to finish, but we have a lot of voiceover in several languages that still need to be recorded. Final Fantasy 16 is very action oriented, so we doing a lot of play testing for fine tuning and difficulty levels, as well as putting the final touches on the cutscenes and going through a full scale debugging process. A year is a short time in game development, so we're straining at the bit to get it over the line. Then it continues, the new Dominance trailer also teased more of the game's music, with Soken's now confirmed as Final Fantasy XVI's composer. Can you share an insight into the trailer music? Was the music we heard from the trailer made just for the beat, or does it include themes or leitmotifs we can expect to hear in the full game? Yoshi P said not all of the music is finished yet, but Soken's the kind of composer who likes to repurpose parts of in-game soundtracks in trailers. I'm sure you'll have heard some of themes of motifs that will make their way into the game. Music in the latest trailer, you have to invite Soken for an interview to find out more, but please only once he finished working on the soundtrack. So he's hard at work with the soundtrack, which is great to actually think about, to know. What are some opportunities afforded by the PlayStation 5 hardware that would not have been possible for previous generations? So Yoshi P said, with the boost in processing power, we can obviously make the graphics even richer than we could before, but it's super fast loading time that really impressed me. In 16, we jumped straight from story cutscenes into real-time combat battles back again without any load times, making the gameplay flow at breakneck speeds. It's only thanks to the processing power of the PS5 we can make Final Fantasy 16 a rollercoaster ride that it is. So they're basically saying the PS5 will make the game pretty fast, like there's no load times at all, so that's great. I heard that the PS4, there was a PS4 version that they had in early development, but then they decided to scrap it so they could save on materials and they can focus more on the PS5 version, which I think is a great idea. They needed to do that so they can put in the best possible Final Fantasy 16 without wasting resources into a PS4 version. And also they spoke about a maturity rating, and they basically said the maturity rating, they needed that so they can have whatever story they want. They didn't have to leave stuff out to get a lower age rating, so it is going to be rated M, and yeah, so it's going to be rated M. So how much of the gameplay factor of the big Titan battles we saw from the recent trailer, what's the ratio to those versus more the recognizable 15 like human combat? So this is from GameSpot. So Yoshi P answered, so what you saw in the trailer was a Titans battle. The icon versus icon battle is only actually a tiny sample of the battle that was actually in store in the game. In the trailer, you had one scene where Shiva and Titan are battling. Actually, that is not playable. It's just a full cutscene. But while this is happening, Clive will be in the same area, kind of experiencing a different part of the battle from a different perspective. However, later in the trailer, you saw a different type of battle with the Titan involved. That part of the battle is actually fully playable, but again, what you've seen is only very small part of the battle. So the battle with the Titan, for example, it's only about maybe a 20th of what you'll actually get to experience. So in that trailer, the battle was tightened. The battle itself goes through many different stages, so many different phases, and all those changing in real time, and the players end up experiencing something that is large scale, action packed, and high octane, and hopefully a lot of players will see that and think, I can't believe you created something that crazy. And again, that's just the battle with the Titan. There are several other summon versus summon battles, and they are all unique from a game design perspective. I can't wait for that. I hope we get to fight all the icons, and if something similar in all the icon battles is something similar to the Titan fight that he's alluding to, that'd be amazing actually. We continue on. He continues, for example, so in the trailer, the battle game design perspective, and then he continues, for example, while one of the battles is reminiscent of a 3D shooting game, well, another feels like a pro wrestling match, while another, like the one with the Titan, incorporates an entire area of the battlefield. So we got pro wrestling, shooting, and JRPG and action elements in this game. Yoshi P is wild and I love it. And again, what we saw in the trailer, that's a good example for those battles. The user interface that you saw on there, again, it shows that this is all in real time. However, the UI, we've had actually removed parts of the UI in the trailer because there would be spoilers in the story, but we didn't want to show those that these battles exist, and that again Clive will be able to control one of the summons that and have the summon versus summon battles. We've talking a lot about Icon versus Icon, but there are different types of battles, as well as a lot of battles that Clive will face while journeying through the realm on a smaller scale. You have Clive who will verse smaller enemies as well. So amazing stuff. You'll fight humans as well as icon-sized battles. And another question, you also have a lot of pressure from the development team itself, because your dev team has expectations in what they want from a game, and so to tell you the truth, no one should ever tackle 2 Final games at once like I did. Then he says, which previous Final Fantasy game would you liken this game to, and how has 14 served as source of inspiration? And he said, as a game will be focused heavily on action features, real-time battles, sometimes on a massive scale that the series hasn't fully explored yet. 16 will end up feeling like a truly new experience for many fans, unlike any of the past Final Fantasy games, so it will still have a lot to feel of inspiration, at least for the summons. While in Final Fantasy 16, the story there and game design there also put a lot of emphasis on how to prioritize the summonings known as the primals in 14, and also players will see some of those influences in 16 and how their portrayal on how they appear in the game. So that's pretty cool. The next question, Final Fantasy 15 was very consciously about male friendships and masculinity. What overall themes is in this game trying to express? And Yoshi P said, one of the main themes of exploring Final Fantasy 16's narrative deals with the inevitable clash of values and ideals when you get multiple different people with different ideals in the same room. What is truly right and what is truly wrong? Again, because we focus so much on the dominance and they have such a large part in the story, you're going to see how they will think the world should be and what they think is right for the world. You're going to focus on those motivations and those struggles, and then you're going to delve even deeper and into darker themes when it comes to how people should live. Should people live the life that was chosen to them, or fight to break free from the kind of destiny? So that's very dark themes. We're going to be going through that. Of course, the different icons were brought up into different regions, so they'll have different beliefs of how the world will work. I really like that. It's going to have the dark themes, which I'm a huge fan of. The game needs to be dark. I made a video if this will be darker than Type 0, which is currently the darkest game of all of Final Fantasy, and it looks like this will be taking the title of darkest Final Fantasy. And then, are there any plans to support the world with territory lore material, or is it more self-contained? And then GP said currently there are no plans to create anything. For example, like the lore book like we had for 14, so the development team is currently working really hard to make the final release of the game and complete experience that no other tertiary content will be required to enjoy and understand it. And also, how the story and the narrative progress is that we follow the life of Clive Rollfield through the 3 different stages. So this confirms the him going through the different time skips when he's a teen, when he's in his 20s, and when he's in his 30s. And because we're covering such a large amount of time with those jumps, it's safe to say that a lot will be happening in the background with regards of the state of the realms. And while we have a few side quests available of the game that will touch upon what's going on in the world in the background, in addition to the main scenario, we also will have these in-game compendiums and a lot of stuff to read in-game that will hopefully help provide a lot of lore for people who wish to delve deeper into the game's lore. So there we go, Clive in his teens, 20s and 30s, and there will be side quests that will explain a lot of the game world. And then this is one of the other questions and what is it like to go from revitalizing an MMO to now being in charge of the next mainline entry in the franchise? Is it something graduate you feel like, hey, this is just another Final Fantasy game, I'm going to do my best? And Yoshi P said, to tell you the truth, to be in charge of the next mainline Final Fantasy is a lot of pressure, and so you have to have the pressure of the fans who want a lot of different things and have a lot of different ideas about the direction of the series, where it should go. You have the pressure of the history of Final Fantasy. It's been 35 years for the franchise, and having all of the history there, the weight of the history, you also have a lot of pressure from the development team itself, because the dev team have expectations in what they want in the game. And so, to tell you the truth, no one should ever take 2 Final Fantasy games at once like I did. Poor lad, poor lad. The one thing that's very different from 14 is that on 14 I'm a producer and director, but luckily on 16 I'm only a producer, so the whole amount of pressure that comes with being a director is not on my shoulders, it's on the director's shoulders. So in that sense, there's a little bit less pressure on me. I know that when companies come to me and ask the development team to tackle the next Final Fantasy 16, I told them that we would do it as long as I didn't have to be director as well, because there's no way I could direct 2 projects on this scale at once. And then, that said, being asked by the company to create the newest mainline Final Fantasy 16, was an honor, and it was an honor that was only made possible by what we were able to achieve on 14, and the amount of feedback that we've gotten from the fans, and the amount of support we've had from players, media, and everyone. You guys supporting us gave us the opportunity for the next Final Fantasy 16, and for that we're very appreciative. Now, not only that, apparently the combat, now of course we knew that the combat was being worked on by like Devil May Cry combat designers, but now apparently there's also Kingdom Hearts designers in the gameplay, which is pretty wild to me. That's pretty cool. That's pretty insane. So this is gonna be the most action-based Final Fantasy game, definitely, because Type 0 kind of had like a not command deck, but like it just had those button prompts, so it wasn't, I mean, I guess it was action, but it was a little bit slow paced for me, especially for me. Final Fantasy 15, it was alright. Final Fantasy 7 Remake, it was fun combat, but I wouldn't say it was an action RPG. This right here, I definitely feel Final Fantasy 16 is going to be the action JRPG that we were looking for Final Fantasy. So yeah, there was a lot of information, and I'm sure I missed out a lot as well, because I couldn't actually find it, but I saw that people were talking on it on Twitter, but when I was looking for it, I couldn't find the tweets. So yeah, I'm sorry about that, but what I could mention to you, I did, so shout out to the people who did tweet that out. But yeah, anyway guys, that is it for this video. I need to drink something, I need to drink some water, because bloody hell, I spoke a lot. Anyway guys, that is it for this video. Leave a like, helps me out a lot. Comment down in the comment section down below what you guys think. Share with friends, because sharing is caring, and most importantly, for my dry throat and me talking so much, subscribe to become a fellow lightning bolt. Anyway guys, that is it for this video. And as always, this is the Lightning H8. Blaze out.